Hello, yes, this is another video which I realise are doing relatively well, it seems. So I'm just going to make sure I try and upload one every night to play with YouTube's algorithms as well as providing some detailed guides and stuff. I'm just going off by what people have asked for and talking about Blue Steel as much as I can. So this is one on Blue Steel into Red Blue, which is for the longest time been the worst matchup that we have. It's somehow got a lot better in set four, and I think a lot of that's down to we don't have to rely on our draw potential from Whole New World as much. We now have four popsicles, which means we're just cycling through cards a lot quicker. It means Harem's a bit more effective than you need. So you need one of the conditions met. You have 8 chances to meet it on turn one, and then we can get the Harem out whenever we want to draw cards. So that's really good. We've got more powers to buff up Tamatoa, and really, overall, I think it is the Photosphere that's brought the whole deck together to have a bit more of a chance at beating Red Blue. Aerial as well has been a nice tool, um, but I wouldn't say that's a reason that we get such a higher chance at winning them in set four than we do in set three, because set three is really bad. And one other factor I think is just Blue Steel players have had a long time to play this matchup, and as much as we hate it, we have to bash our head against the wall and try and beat it. So yeah, as I say, this is our hardest matchup in my opinion. So we go in needing to play a lot more greedier, a lot more. We need as much lore as we can. We need to do it as quick as we can. We can't play into the late game because they ramp. Sometimes they'll ramp more efficiently than even we do. Especially on Mickey builds, if they're doing one jump ahead, then they play Quill. They can start putting stuff in the inkwell more, and then if we were to say play a whole new world, we refresh their hand and they have more ramp options. So one of the options, one of the ways to beat them, and this is usually found in Mickey builds. You don't find this in one jump ahead builds because what they will do is they will try and compete with the ramp and try to get to Tamatoa range and start dime tapping. Um, Probably trying to do it quicker than they do. So if they're on the play, that's actually fine. It'll probably all work. And sometimes we will go for that with this build. But because we use Mickey, we use McDuck Manners. We only actually have two Tamatoas in my latest build. We try and look for the early lore as soon as we can. And as I say, we have to be really greedy. Getting Smee on 2 is quite important in this build. Because what that will do is we get him down on 2, on the play or on the draw. And we can start turning sideways with that whilst they're playing their one jumps ahead, setting up their Hirems, setting up their Quills, setting up whatever they need to ramp. We can be like, right, here's a Smee and he's going to turn sideways and get me 2 lore until you deal with him. It used to be in set 3 they would ramp to Medusa, take it out, and then have Medusa sing things like how far I've gone, but I'm not seeing that commonly played as much. And they're letting the Smee get away. So if Smee can achieve 4 to 6 lore, I think that's very good. In this matchup, because we'll lose board a lot quicker than we would versus red purple, we need to get to certain points, say like if we get 4 to 6 lore from Smee. So if we go over 5, that means we're only essentially 3 dime taps from winning. So that can be done with Tamatoa, Bell, or Aerial. So it's really good. It's really important to get to that 4 or 6. But even from there, you can do Smee, Mickey, and they might be thinking, hey, he's only got Smee and Mickey, and they're turning sideways. That's not that bad, and we'll be like, okay, cool. We'll just keep taking our lore, and then we get to a point where we can wheel hyper ramp, ignore what they're doing. They might get to some crazy lore, they might get to some crazy board state, but we'll be like, hey, we've turned it sideways enough to get to a certain amount of lore, and then we can just win. Win with the dime at the end. We've got a few other tools to play with in the McDuck Manor. I think it's very good. They very, very greedy deck. So they want to spend most of their resources on ramping. They won't want to spend it on doing 9 damage to a location. So yeah, if you can get to a point where you play Mukduk out, they are going to have to either invest into a Maui and then hit it with something else, or that's really mostly their main option. And we're sort of okay with that because if they've done that on their turn, they haven't done anything to attack our board. They haven't done anything to ramp this up to their dime. So we can work with that. And if they leave it, we gain 2 lore. So I think it's a very good card for this matchup. Hardhead Beast is really nice to play if they hit the Quill. I've had so many games though when I've kept it in the hand because I'm like, okay, this will be great when I can hit their Quill. They miss the Quill, they hit the Porpsicle, but it's still good for that. And also we can play this on curve, so we can go 2. We can go Porpsicle. Yeah, this is perfect curve as well. We can go Porpsicle, Smee, Ramp, so Mickey or Quill. Then they will play their quill, and then we come back to us and we play beasts. We take theirs out. They're going to be behind until they set up another quill. So it's just a really good card for that. It is primarily in this for that matchup, but you could also argue it's in here for the mirror as well. And we don't really have too many other cards for that. So I can run through the play and the draw. Uh, the Argus as well, just to note, he's very good because Red Blue does play Sisu. They play the little one and the big one, and he will trade into them perfectly. I'm not saying you set up an Argus to take out a big Sisu and 8-drop Sisu, but it does that, and that's kind of cool, I think. And also, it's like I say, it's not great for them to want to Medusa something that quests for 1, but they can't Medusa it as well, and he's sort of actually putting a bit of work in this matchup, so he's just another one to note. Cogsworth is almost redundant now in set 4, which sort of sucks because it used to be really good, but because of Big Sisu, it's hard to set up Cogs and get any value out of him beyond singing, and they're just going to be prep boards anyway. But yeah, actually, I'll go back to my other point before I'm rambling. When we play on the play, I wouldn't say it's free. It's very far from free, but we have a very good chance of winning. They say if you find that perfect curve of Popsicle, Smee, and what will happen is we'll play Popsicle. They might play their Popsicle. Comes back to us. We'll play Smee. They'll play one jump ahead most commonly. They won't be playing any characters. All their characters are gone. In set 3, they used to play Queen of Hearts, which was a bit upsetting because if they missed the one jump, they'll play Queen of Hearts, take out Smee, and that's a really good trade for them. But it's not very common now, so it will just keep questing for us. Getting to the ramp, we can go to the 5-drop, and then we can say, hey, I'm just going to wheel and find dimes and stuff, and find answers. It's very risky to do that, but on the play, I think you are more often than not fine with that, especially if it comes back to them, and before we've set up our 5-drop, and it's like, your turn, go, and they set up a hero, and we can get, okay, they're going to get consistent draw. Instead of trying to starve them, we can just be like, I'm going to wheel, and I don't really care about the hero anymore because we've both got 7 new cards. Not a completely conventional way to do it, but it works. We will, and we can set up the dime, and we can start dime tapping as soon as we can, quest as much as we can, be awkward with the boards, force them to play removal instead of progressing towards their win. So that's why McDuck's very good for that. But playing characters on boards, if they haven't got they haven't got a Maleficent Big Dragon or a Tamatoa set up, they're going to have to hardcast Be Prepared. It's a little bit worse into Red Blue because they can probably afford it and afford to do other things on that turn because they're going to be ramping so fast. Whereas Red Purple, it's sometimes quite nice that they're just going to play Be Prep on their turn and pass back to you, and you're like, okay, I get a free turn now to do what I want, and they didn't progress their board, and they've actually wiped anything they possibly would have had on their board. But yeah, I still think that's a winning play. You can just ramp and race them. But yeah, if they don't set up a Hiram and you're seeing that they're inking down, and they might even slow down on the quill because I can't just keep starving my hand. You can slow down and stop and be like, okay, I'm just going to play this a little bit slower, and just basically refuse to give them any resources with the whole new world. On the draw, it's a little bit more tricky. If we they're ahead because they're going first. If we whole new world, we reset their entire hand, and they start with one less card than us because they're on the play. So whole new world is very rarely our option. It's only if they're getting very consistent draws from Hiram and they're drawing an insane amount of cards, and we're like, it doesn't matter if you have the 7 cards in your hand now or the 7 new ones that I give you because I gain from it as well. But besides that, it's rare that we'd want to play whole new world on the draw. It's really nice to hold back a little bit, see where they're at. If they don't Harem, they might sometimes miss Harem. And then we can go like, okay, cool, and I'll just keep turning sideways, play a McDuck mana, make the board awkward. We can keep doing that and get quite small increments of lore until we can get to a point where we can dime. And that could even be the point where we want to go, hey, whole new world, I'm going to look for my dime now. That can be a really good play, but on the draw, it can just be hard. Like I say, they're just going to be ramping. They're going to get to do it first. They're going to get to one jump. They're going to get to quill. We're just going to be behind. Sadly, it's just a part of Lorcana. I think you kind of have to watch and wait for them to slip up a bit, and hopefully, they don't get that quill on 3, or they don't get the Hiram. They don't get the one jump. They don't get this. and then we can get our way in there. But of course, we still have Hardhead Beast to slow them down if they do get a Quill. And sometimes as well, Hardhead Beast will never effectively remove a Hiram because we can't do 6 damage, uh, in a timely manner. The best option we have is Tinkerbell and Sing Zeus. Um, so if they get a Hiram and say they've only got one Porpsicle, they might play it, break a Porpsicle, and they play another one. You can play Hardhead Beast to break the Porpsicle, and just think that they only have they probably have a smaller amount, but you've taken it out the immediate, and you can't guess what's in their hand. They probably will have another Porpsicle or another item to draw with, but we never know, and that's also a play you can make. Threatening the board of Aerial, if you've gone for it and you realise they haven't got a Tremaine, you can just play an Aerial on the board and force a B prep. Um, Other cards to note as well is Let It Go. Sorry, it's been on my head the entire time we've been talking. Let It Go is very good, but it's also very bad. The only thing we really want to let it go is Tamatoa, because we're going to give them an ink. We'd love to say we had an answer like Let It Go for a Heron, but if we do that so early on, we give them a ramp, and it's just not very good. But if they would set up a Tamatoa and it looks like they're going to dime tap it or they're going to do something else, we can let it go and pass and give ourselves another turn. That will cost them another turn of setting up for their dime tap wins. So we do have that. And just to note as well, we have a whole new world. If you can assume they have a dime in their hand just from the way they're playing, or maybe they played a Tamatoa and they brought a dime back to their hand and they haven't afforded to play it on the thing. On the ground, if you can remove the Tamatoa, because the Tamatoa can get it back again by questing, if you can remove the Tamatoa and then you can wheel, you can burn the dime again. And if you're in a point where you're like, I know they don't have dimes and that it's going to be quite hard for them to get it back, even if they find a Tamatoa, that's not a bad spot for you to be in. It means they can't race you. They don't play a lot of questers. They don't turn sideways very much. I think Big Sisu is probably their only good quester. But it's very predictable when that's going to come out, and it's got 4 health, so we can Zeus it. So yeah, but still on the draw, it's a very bad power dynamic. They're ramping the same as we are, and we're 1 turn behind. And if they play one Jaheb and Quill and then Hiram, they've got card draw, they've got more ramp than us, and it's just hard. But yeah, I'll go into some mulligans here as well. Someone made a very good observation on one of my mulligans in another video, but I'll start with this. So yeah, we don't need a Baboom, though we know Baboom targets. Cogworth is at 5-cost Singer, but we probably don't need it. All fairly useful cards, just nothing we want to draw early on. Porpsicle and Fishbone, that's nice too. But like I said, we do really want the Smee. The way I treat Porpsicle is because it will replace itself on that turn, so mulliganing it away is not going to do much. It would give us another chance of getting a Smee, but I also think the draw from the Porpsicle is enough to give you another chance at the Smee. So I would just keep these two. As I said, they're going to be ramping like crazy, so Fishbone is always more optimal than the Mickey is, in my opinion. So still, yeah, it's not a great hand. We'd probably ink a Quill, play a Porpsicle, and hopefully we get one of our early questers out. If it gets, I think at this point as well, because we wouldn't be able to get the early questers out. Getting the Mickey might not be great because it will be, if we pass turn 1, turn 2, no questers out, turn 3, we'll set up a Mickey and then start turning sideways. I just don't think that's going to get you enough lore. He'd be great to have later on, so I'd set up a Quill, try and get to the point where he'd sing Whole New World and just race for the dime and try finish with a dime. Because, yeah, he's just not going to be enough on 3. But as I say, this hand is just the appearing hand. We could ink, draw that, draw a Smee, and turn this hand into a really nice hand. We would probably want the Harem, or we would want the 5-cost to sing the Whole New World. So hopefully that would come as well as you get playing the game out. Another hand that's not terrible. So we get rid of the Duck Commander, get rid of the Dime, get rid of Tinkerbell. Rise of Titans is a very small use in this matchup. It can be very niche. They might have a dime set up and you tap it, you hit it with this Rise of Titans and you force them to spend 7 more ink to replay it. But that's not bad. One, and then we got Quill, and then we've got a Hiram to set up because we're gonna need that card draw. You could argue that you'd want to throw the Hiram away just for another Smee, and I think I'd do that because the light here is we're going to draw into Hiram, we're going to draw into more card draw. So yeah, I'd just keep these two, I think. And then that hand is it's not amazing either, But we'll come back, we draw a card, hopefully we draw an inkable, we can ink it, play a pop score, Fortisphere, hopefully get an early quest as I say, play the fishbone, and then we have a nice option here of beasting whatever they have, and then if they don't draw a Hiram, or they don't have many other options, they're in a kind of a stalemate board where they might even get to a point where it's just I ink and pass turn, because they can't ramp to their bigger targets. So yeah, that's not a bad one either. I get really bad hands with these, so I'm going to do two more. This sounds amazing. This is on the play, is what I'm going to go for. Aerial's too early. Cogsworth is alright. And as someone mentioned before in one of my other videos, I think put it in the comments, Let It Go is quite useful. So we should probably mulligan that away. So if we want our spare ink, we would keep it for the Cogsworth. So what I would do is keep the Cogsworth. So we're probably going to ink it. The play Fortisphere, Smee, Quill, play the Hiram out, and just keep going from there. And that's not bad. See, so I'd start thinking the Cogsworth because just big Sisu taking that out is too much value. You know, they'd take that out, they'd take a Hiram out, they'd take so much out. So I'd ink that, play the Fortisphere, Smee, set up the Quill, maybe get the Tinkerbell set up if it looks like we're wheeling. Otherwise, we'd keep these two Hirams because it's likely one Hiram is going to get brawled, and we can be like, that's cool, we'll play the second one, keep it going. They might brawl the next one, or they're going to reduce it. They're going to have a lot of answers for Hiram. But, you know, we can still get our card draw going, and we can get setting up with just turning sideways, maybe throw a Mukduk Manor out there. And, yeah, and then just look for the dime and try set up. The reason why I'm so putting the emphasis on Smee is that pretty much anything later on in the game is just going to get removed. So the only time we actually get to quest is with Smee because it's so early on, they're still ramping, they're not at the point where they can play their removal yet. So Smee is so important because he's pretty much the only thing that's going to quest. It's so important to get that 2-cost, that early quester out, I think, that even if you've got like an Argus, instead I'd just play that out, or you've got a Broom, or you've got a Hook, you know, you just play that out. It's just something to turn sideways. And it's going to cost them removal to remove it. They will have to do that. So it's not bad. I doubt you'd ever force a brawl on a Broom or a Hook, but you know, they might have to Medusa it or something, and it's just going to be a bit awkward for them. And a lot of these games do come down to the one or two lore that's left over after we've lost the board and we're playing just into dimes. Let's do one more then on the draw. Relatively it's a hand. I would get rid of everything. Like I say, because we're on the draw, we're behind. I really would want that Smee. So I'd even get rid of the Heron because I'm assuming we would draw into another one, which we did. So this isn't is not a very hand. We could realise no, because we've got the Quill. We'd ink the McDuck, play this out, and hopefully get something early that's going to start questing. The Quill has got a good bit of work here because we've started throwing the Grab Your Swords away, and then probably the Whole New World if we're going to use the Hiram. But I could see you could navigate this hand to a win, but like I say, it's still really not in your favour. But yeah, that's a few hands for Into the Red Blue matchup. Just a last few points on it. As I say, you need to be extremely greedy with what you want. You need the Smees. You need to be drawing correctly. You can't really miss any tempo because we can't afford it. Whereas before we could afford it because we were so far ahead on ink that it's like, well, it's fine. You know, I have 8 ink to play with next turn. This will be like, yeah, they have 8 ink as well. So it's just hard. I think you need to hit every pressure point perfectly. Even to the point where if you need to catch up on ink, you can play a bell down to double ink your hand, and if that can mean you can refresh it again with Holy World, that's not a terrible play, or keep drawing with Hiram. And the one last thing that's been rattling in my head as I talk is some decks will play Judy Hops, and of course we have to be greedy, we have to be confident, we just play into the fact that they might take out your dime, but if they do, they do. And we can use Tamatoa to retrieve it again, or we have a second dime. But yeah, if you've gone to your first game and you lose because they Judy Hops the dime, next game you're going to have to think about that. Most RB players that I talked to said they will always hide their inking of Judy Hops, so they'll quill it away, they won't ink for turn unless they really have to because they want you afraid of the Judy Hops. But that being said, you can wheel and maybe burn it out of their hand, or you just basically can't be afraid of it. And the same goes for Be Prepared. You pretty much, if they have it, they have it. There's not much you can do about that. If they have the Sisu, they have it. Same with the way we play confidently with our Hirams. If they have Brawl, they have Brawl. We came off with two two card draw on that. And as I say, if we play characters onto the board, hoping they quest, it's like if they have the answer, they have the answer. Holding them in our hands wouldn't have done anything different. You can sometimes tease things like a be prepared, and sometimes if you play a little bit slower with Judy Hops, they might just Judy Hops your quill. But overall, we just basically have to be very greedy and just keep looking for as much lore as we can. And hopefully they get some slip ups and we come out on top of it. I'd say my win rate into RB has got a lot better on the play. I'd say I'm positive around 60%. On the draw, it drops 40 to 30 really. So yeah, if you play into this matchup, don't be too upset with the outcome. If you're doing a best of two format, just try get one win, try get a 1-1. This is a deck that if you brought to original and you brought BS and you played RB, this is one of the games where you'd be happy to walk away with a 1-1. Of course, 2-0 if you can, but you'd be happy to walk away with a 1-1 because that is this is the matchup that we are a little bit worried about. But yeah, I think I've covered a few points on there, and hopefully that's useful to someone.